Good morning, members, friends, and partners. My name is Candace Helton, the Civil Service Vice President for the Thursday Luncheon Group. On behalf of the 2022-2024 Executive Board, I extend our sincere gratitude to each of you for joining us for this joyful celebration of 50 years of excellence in foreign affairs, our Golden Jubilee. And now it is my distinct honor to introduce our current and past TLG presidents. Ambassador C. Stephen McGann. Ambassador Pamela E. Bridgewater. Ambassador Denise Matu. Ambassador Teddy Taylor. Ambassador Aurelia Brazil. Mr. Stacy Williams. Ambassador Ruth Davis. And our current president, Dr. Yolanda Kearney. Thank you all for your service. Gonna give our VIPs a minute. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing to the honors of Secretary of State Antony J. Blinken. And please remain standing for our national anthem. You may be seated. And now, please join me in welcoming to the podium my fellow member of the TLG Executive Board, former Foreign Service Vice President Crystal Norman.
Secretary of State Blinken, Ambassador Thomas Greenfield, Acting Deputy Secretary for Management and Resources Bass, Undersecretary Jenkins, Undersecretary Zaya, Senior Official Allen, Director General Bernacat, Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, Ambassador ABERCROMBIE-WINSTANLEY, Special Representative Cormier, USAID Counselor White, TLG members and Pioneer awardees, distinguished guests, partners, and dearest friends. Welcome to the TLG's 50th Anniversary Luncheon, the launch of a year-long celebration of our rich and enduring legacy of excellence in foreign affairs. Our legacy is full of the hope that the present has brought us. All of you here have, in one way or another, contributed to TLG's diverse, dynamic, and distinguished network of leaders. Thank you all for your support. We have and will continue to make important contributions to the formulation, articulation, and implementation of foreign policy. The responsibility to shape and strengthen this institution that has become the leading voice for African American and foreign affairs professionals of color is one that neither I nor the board take lightly. We thank our senior leaders, including senior advisors such as Ambassador Ruth Davis, Ambassador Sylvia Stanfield, Ambassador Joan Polashek, and DAS Tony Fernandez, among many others, whose wisdom fuels our continued growth, relevance, and impact across the interagency. We stand on the shoulders of giants, lean on the counsel of our pioneers, and work every day to forge a future filled with resilience and unwavering optimism. TLG is truly a family, a legacy, and a community, deeply rooted in its past and fiercely devoted to its future. And in that spirit, we are so proud to present the 2023 Pioneer Awards, one of our most revered traditions. The Pioneer Award is TLG's highest honor and has been awarded to individuals of distinction invested in recruitment, retention, empowerment, sponsorship, and mentorship of foreign service and civil service foreign affairs professionals. The two distinguished leaders that we will honor today exemplify our ideals, our core values, and the commitment to public service, joining the company of exceptional TLG luminaries. To lead our first award presentation, please join me in welcoming to the podium Ms. Gaida Ahmad.
Thank you. Good evening, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to be in this room with you all, and I want to extend a sincere gratitude towards TLG for the invitation. Discovering TLG was one of the best parts of my experience at the State Department. My name is Gaida Ahmed, and I'm a current master's candidate at the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced and International Studies. I focus on security, strategy, and statecraft in the Middle East, and after graduation, I hope to join the State Department as a foreign affairs officer. Over the summer, I had the honor and privilege of interning at the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor under the Office of Near Eastern Affairs. My experience was nothing short of extraordinary. At the time, however, interns were not being paid as they are now. So to my complete surprise, upon the completion of a 10-week program, I received a call from board members of TLG and ABAA, letting me know that I was going to be receiving a stipend for my time and dedication. I'm so grateful that organizations like TLG exist because they have highlighted to me that Black Americans not only have an honorable place at this distinguished agency, but can also make venerable achievements while making history, as many of you all have done in this room. So it is with great inspiration that I introduce Ambassador C. Stephen McGann, and I'm so grateful for his service in Near East and Asia, and you may also see some more information in your pamphlet. Please welcome Ambassador C. Stephen McGann.
Thank you very much for that introduction. You know, when I first learned I was going to be a pioneer, I had to take a step back and think, am I that old? But you realize that once you become a pioneer, you learn that the journey is not over, that you have to keep on pushing. And that's why we here today have a lot of work ahead of us. We chose a career has a path that is difficult. It's not easy. There are no shortcuts, and there are obstacles in the way. But that's why we have a duty to promote, to make sure that the policies toward recruitment, retention, and promotion are sound. It is our obligation to ensure the continuity, the viability, and sustainability of the Pickering, Wrangell, and Payne programs. But most importantly, it is important for us to understand that we are the State Department. We are part of the State Department. Understanding those duties, obligations, and responsibilities, and key is the responsibility each of us has to study, learn, and execute the personnel policies of this department to make sure we execute them in a way to achieve our goals. When I was a TLG member coming up, many ambassadors advised me to aim high and stay the course. Some of my mentors are here today. But my hero was TLG member Ollie P. Anderson. Ollie was a Foreign Service officer at a time in which the glass ceiling was so low, if you wore a hat, you'd bump your head. We're not home yet. But Ollie never got the best assignments, but he always did his best. He became a senior Foreign Service officer just before he was retired. But the one thing that Ollie never forgot was that his work was essential, he was essential. And so whether or not you work in Harry Truman Building or an annex or an embassy overseas, like Ollie, remember that you must be essential. You must be essential to your work, you must be essential to your family, you must be essential to yourselves. And while you're doing that, as my previous ambassadors always said to me, aim high and stay the course. And always remember, like Tyree Nichols, we're not home yet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador McGann. I would now like to invite Ms. Abby Ferguson to the podium to present our next award.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Abby Ferguson, and my introduction to TLG came through my participation in the Larry Palmer Envoys program with former diplomat in residence, Dr. Yolanda Kearney, who has also served as a great mentor to me, along with DOCOR President, Mr. Jim Dandridge. Dr. Kearney worked with Ambassador Palmer early in her career and wanted to continue his legacy of service and mentorship by introducing HBCU students like myself to the work of the State Department and the importance of excellence in diplomacy. So she started the Palmer Envoys. Through my participation in this program, I learned from so many TLG and ABAA members how I could combine my interests in diplomacy and international affairs through service in the U.S. Foreign Service. In December, I graduated from the University of the District of Columbia with a bachelor's degree in political science with a concentration in global studies, and I was also chosen as a 2023 Charles B. Rangel International Affairs Graduate Fellow. My fellow Palmer envoy, Carmel Reeves, was also selected as a Pickering Fellow. We are proud to be the first Palmer envoys to become diplomatic fellows, and we are both grateful to TLG. I hope to bring the same level of commitment and passion to my career as a Foreign Service officer, just as the late Ambassador Palmer and the Pioneer Award honorees today. I have the honor of presenting this TLG Pioneer Award to the longest-serving American diplomat in apartheid South Africa and former ambassador to Benin, Ghana, and Jamaica, Ambassador Pamela E. Bridgewater.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ferguson. Mr. Secretary, to our senior ambassadors, Ambassador Davis, Ambassador Brazil, to my fellow colleagues of the Department of State, to the members of the Thursday Luncheon Group celebrating their 50 years, thank you for this distinguished honor. I am truly, truly grateful. But like my colleague, Ambassador McGann, who I congratulate, we owe so much to others. And for me, I think of persons such as Mrs. Janice Clements. I think of persons such as Cheryl Hodge. I think of ambassadors Edward Perkins, Johnny Young, John Burroughs, who for me personally helped me find the way forward. So I thank them today as I receive this award. And I also want to encourage the Thursday Luncheon Group to continue what we do so well, and that is mentoring. And I have a mentee here that I want to call out because he began his life in a refugee camp in Tanzania. And he is now completing his second year of graduate studies at Georgetown University as a Payne Fellow. He's done his internship at Lima, Peru Embassy, U.S. Embassy, Nehemiah Abel. So I'm so proud of him, and that is what we all must do as we move the agenda of the Thursday Luncheon Group forward. So I want to thank also Mr. Stacy Thomas, who was the vice president of the Thursday Luncheon Group during my tenure as president. Stacy really took it to a wonderful new level. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Ambassador Brazil, who was the dean of the senior seminar during the 42nd seminar, and she helped us learn so much about leadership and management and training. So as we pay it forward in the years ahead, we commit ourselves to continuing the work of the Thursday Luncheon Group and Mr. Secretary in making sure that the face of American diplomacy continues to represent the best of the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Ambassador Bridgewater, thank you for those remarks. And now we welcome to the podium the State Department's Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, Ambassador GINA ABERCROMBIE-WINSTANLEY.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. All right. It is good to see you here and to share the joy of recognizing our esteemed colleagues. I want to start by thanking you all for joining us gathering here today, the first Thursday of the month, as our founders used to do. It's great to see you all here, one place, one time. I believe this is our first time in person, Mr. Secretary, post-COVID. It is a privilege to celebrate TLG's first 50 years of excellence. Though we are gathering at a time when a strong light must be focused on our nation's dark shadows. Our path is full of hope. The future members like Yada and Abby among us bring that to us. As the State Department's oldest employee organization, TLG has led the charge to promote diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility within the State Department and our sister agencies. TLG showed the way. For more than 20 employee organizations that are in existence now because TLG was the first. This is something to be very proud of and applauded. So another round of applause for that leadership. Before DEIA was a formal concept or an arm of organizational management under a committed and bold secretary, thank you, Mr. Secretary, TLG members focused on inclusion, accessibility, equity, and diversity across the interagency. So while I am the department's first CDIO, I am not the first to tackle these issues. So many of our elders, Ambassador Davis, helped show the way. So now I'm pleased to welcome to the podium the 71st Secretary of State, Mr. Antony Blinken. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Please have a seat. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So, this is humbling in so many ways. There is so much history in this room, but so much living history. It's a powerful thing to be a small part of it, to be part of this incredible continuum. And what's so encouraging to me is to see some of our younger colleagues come up here today and show that this is an ongoing story, but a story that so many of you shaped, wrote, and have done wonderful things for this department over so many years. So Ambassador Bridgewater, Ambassador McGann, Abby, GINA, Candace, you're a very hard act to follow, but I'm going to try to do my best. To some of my colleagues, in particular, Deputy Secretary Bass, who's in an acting capacity but is doing extraordinary work for our department. To Ambassador ABERCROMBIE-WINSTANLEY, who I think many of you know is quite literally a force of nature. Director Bernacat, another wonderful force of nature. Your dedication to this department and to its people, all of its people, is making a huge difference every single day. And so much of the work that you're doing today is going to have profound, profound repercussions and benefits for this department for many years going forward. President Kearney, Yolanda, to you, to the past TLG presidents, to members of the Association of Black American Ambassadors, to our younger fellows and interns with us today, family and friends of TLG giants who have passed. Thank you all for being here. I didn't realize it was actually the first gathering since COVID. It's wonderful to be a part of that. I think, I don't know originally, and maybe someone will tell me why Thursday was actually chosen as the day. Now, my wife calls Thursday Little Friday, so maybe that has something to do with it. I always love Thursdays, and I can see why you did too. But thank you for allowing me to join in celebrating the Thursday Luncheon Group's 50th anniversary, especially as we kick off Black History Month. It's not easy to sum up 5 decades in just a few minutes. If I tried to repeat all of the TLG stories, we'd be here until the Friday Luncheon Group, or maybe even the Monday Luncheon Group. But let me just share one story at the outset that I think speaks volumes about the people who've shaped this organization and this department. And of course, it involves the incomparable Ambassador Ruth Davis. It's wonderful to be with you today. Now, back in 1969, Ruth was finishing her master's degree at the University of California at Berkeley. And the story goes, and Ruth, correct me if I'm wrong, if I get any of this wrong. You're right. So the story has it, Ruth, that you were on the picket line one morning demonstrating for the creation of a Black Studies program at Berkeley. And then around noon, you put down your sign, you raced to the airport, you flew to Washington, D.C., and you joined the Foreign Service. Now, as Ambassador Davis was filling out her paperwork, the very first document that she had to sign was an oath promising not to strike against the United States government. And what I'm told, Ruth, is that you later recalled thinking, oh my, I've been co-opted. I think it's safe to say no one has ever co-opted Ruth Davis. Indeed, what you've done, what the entire TLG have brought to this department is that very spirit that led you to picket and pick up that sign in the first place. And that's an unwavering belief in pushing for progress, no matter what the obstacle is. In that conviction, as Ruth has put it, is a belief that institutions are not perfect. And it's ultimately up to the individuals who make up those institutions to use their talent to make them better. And that is exactly what this group is all about. So today, we mark 50 years of the Thursday Luncheon Group, making things better. Making things better for the people of this institution, making our foreign policy better, making the foreign affairs agencies better at delivering on the policies both here at home as well as around the world. Back in 1973, when TLG was founded, a lot needed improvement. For example, the so-called circuit still limited opportunities for black officers. There were only 5 black ambassadors, all assigned to Africa. There were 7 black people in leadership positions abroad at USAID, all assigned to Africa. The Thursday Luncheon Group began, quite literally, as lunch on the first Thursday of the month. It was a chance for a handful of people, a few black officers, like William Davis, like Robert Dumas, like Edward Perkins, like Aurelio Brazil, to meet informally, to swap advice on navigating the world of foreign affairs, to plan recruitment efforts. For Ambassador Brazil, TLG was simply a community, and that's an incredibly powerful thing. Now, it was a fairly small community, to be sure. There wasn't even, as I understand it, a permanent meeting place. Sometimes the group would meet here at the department, sometimes at the former United States Information Agency, or over at the Foreign Service Club, sometimes at GW University. Depending on the day, there might be a couple of dozen people or 2 or 3. And even the name was deliberately low-key, to minimize raising suspicions at a time when supervisors sometimes asked what these meetings were all about. Over the past half-century, though, the Thursday Luncheon Group has quietly, steadily changed American diplomacy. We see that first and foremost in TLG's members, devoted diplomats who have always offered a hand up to the next generation. And we saw some of that right here today. For Ambassador Harriet E. Lim Thomas, it was 4 TLG colleagues who prepared her for the Foreign Service oral exam. And they were, in her words, unmerciful. But she passed, and maybe that's why she passed, and served with distinction from Brussels to Dakar. For Daniel Delk, it was Ambassador Sylvia Stanfield, gently pushing him past his comfort zone, advice that redirected him from a career in Latin America to one in Asia. In the Thursday Luncheon Group, diplomats have found advice, an incubator of talent, a source of inspiration, a direct line to history, as one member put it. And I can feel that palpably in this room today. Now, I suspect that many of you have powerful stories about what this group has meant. Maybe when you were new, still finding your way around, you got an email from a legendary ambassador, just checking in. Maybe someone taught you to navigate the bidding process, or Cheryl Hodge or Bernie Colbert volunteered to look over your EERs, those annual evaluations that help determine who gets promoted. Maybe someone even helped you just figure out how to get from point A to point B in this building, something I still need a little help with. Maybe you made a small mistake. Picked up the phone to hear a mentor greet you with a little bit of tough love. Don't do that again, but this is how you fix it. By making a tremendous effort to support its members, the Thursday Luncheon Group has changed generations of diplomats. And through them, it's changed this department, and it's changed our foreign policy for the better. As the oldest employee affinity group, the TLG has helped launch other employee organizations and served as a model to those helping Americans of all backgrounds find a home here in the department. By inviting senior leaders to meetings and raising ideas and constructive feedback, TLG has also encouraged the department to improve how it recruits, how it retains, how it promotes employees of color, so that, yes, our department actually looks more like the country it represents. That includes working to stand up our Pickering and Rangel fellowships to bring young people from underrepresented backgrounds into the Foreign Service. Today, 1 in 9 of our active Foreign Service officers participated in one of these fellowship programs, significantly diversifying and immeasurably enriching the diplomatic corps. And then we have our newest Larry Palmer envoys, some of whom are here today, along with Larry's son, Vincent. Where are you, Vincent? Are you here? So this program is only 1 year old, but it has already helped more than 40 HBCU students deepen their engagement in foreign affairs. This is literally the future of our foreign policy. Thank you, thank you, thank you for this. Of course, the Thursday Luncheon Group has not only shaped our diplomats and strengthened our institution, TLG has made our foreign policy better. It's better thanks to people like the outstanding individuals that we honor today. Ambassador Bridgewater, who worked closely with Nelson Mandela to support South Africa's transition from apartheid into a vibrant democracy. And Ambassador McGann, who helped forge vital partnerships for our country across the Indo-Pacific. The work that they did not only had an impact in the moment, it's had a lasting impact for our foreign policy, for our standing in the world, for our partnerships and alliances. And our policies are better because of the extraordinary members currently serving at some of the highest levels of our department. Like Bonnie Jenkins, our Undersecretary for Arms Control, who has spent her career making the world safer, quite literally, slowing the spread of infectious disease, preventing the use of nuclear weapons. Like Brian Nichols, our Assistant Secretary for the Western Hemisphere, shaping our relationships with our closest neighbors on everything from expanding inclusive economic opportunities to combating corruption. I see their work. I benefit from their counsel every single day, and I'm grateful for it. All part of this TLG community, all exceptional diplomats. And that's not to mention the countless others who have served with excellence, whether as special assistants or special envoys, whether they're working to combat the climate crisis, support free and fair elections, strengthen our cybersecurity. On every issue, in every region, TLG members have made our foreign policy smarter, they've made it more creative, they've made it more effective. You are the institutional embodiment of the Langston Hughes poem, I Too, a way of saying not only to Black Americans, but to every person who has ever felt left out, we too are a proud part of this country and this department, and both are stronger for having us at the table. Now, to state the obvious, this has not always been easy. Many members of the TLG, diplomats of color, and indeed, people across this department have had to grapple with the dissonance of working to advance America's highest ideals around the world, even as those same values are undercut or downright violated here at home, and even as those values are contradicted by their own lived experience. Members of the department are dealing with this tension in this very moment, as we're once again confronted with the horrific videos of the killing of another young Black man, Tyree Nichols. And yet, generations of TLG members have continued to serve America and advance our foreign policy. And I suspect many, have continued to serve not in spite of this dissonance, but because of it, making the United States better through their service, seeking to close the gap between our principles and our practices. There is nothing more American than that. This is part of what makes America exceptional. This constant striving to, as our founders put it, form a more perfect union. Confronting our challenges, our deficiencies, our problems, not ignoring them, not sweeping them under the rug. And it's incredibly painful. Sometimes it's incredibly ugly, but it is profoundly, profoundly what makes us better and actually gives us standing around the world to look to other countries to say, you should do the same thing too. As this group knows better than anyone, we still have a lot of work to do here at the department. Improving the State Department, like improving our country, is not like flipping a light switch. I'd like to think that the foggy bottom of 2023 looks very different than it did back in 1973. And not just because we finally upgraded the old wine computers that even I had a chance to experience. Today, that informal lunch group that started with just a handful of folks boasts 500 members from Maine State to posts around the globe, including TLG's own LTG, Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield, who serves alongside me in President Biden's cabinet and drives our foreign policy at the United Nations. Thank you. Linda and I work closely together to try and bring a little TLC to everything that we do. And downstairs, just a few generations after black state employees could not eat where they chose, department staff of every race and every background now walk through a cafeteria bearing the name of the TLG alum who fought to desegregate eating spaces in this institution, the extraordinary Ambassador Terrence Todman. Now, if all of this could come from a few people grabbing lunch, I can only imagine the connections, the careers, the progress that will come from TLG over the next 50 years. As I said, there is a lot of work to be done. I'm grateful that Ambassador GINA ABERCROMBIE-WINSTANLEY is leading the charge. And I can tell you, I am determined that by the time my time here is up, we will have demonstrated that we've made a profound difference and continue to make sure that this department looks like the country it represents. I just want to say how proud I am today to be your lunch guest and to join you in this essential work. And on behalf of this institution, in fact, on behalf of this country, thank you. Thank you for 50 years of making our foreign policy better, advancing our interests and values around the world, making all of us better. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary. It is my honor now and my pleasure to call to the podium Ambassador Ruth Davis and our Director General, Ambassador Barnicat.
Secretary Blinken, I have the honor of welcoming you into the Thursday Luncheon Group family. For 50 years, TLG has focused on amplifying the voices of people of color in foreign affairs. During your entire public career, you have demonstrated support for diversity and inclusion in foreign affairs. Early in your tenure as Secretary of State, you said, and I quote, "The rich diversity of the United States is a core source of our national strength and a cherished part of our national identity." You said, "We simply cannot advance America's interests and values around the world without a workforce that is truly representative of the American people. Beyond diversity, we are committed to inclusion." Thank you for those words, Mr. Secretary, because TLG members know that institutional attitudes are guided by their leaders. Therefore, we feel very fortunate to have you at the helm of this great institution that we all love so well. That is why we take great pleasure in conferring on you a lifetime membership in TLG. We welcome you. We welcome you with great enthusiasm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
But wait, there's more. Ambassador Davis, if you would stay with us for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Oh, yeah, still morning. Still morning. All right. It is such an enormous pleasure to be here today, celebrating the many contributions of the Thursday Luncheon Group and its members over the course of its extraordinary 50-year history. Both in terms of longevity and impact, it is, I beg to say, the most influential employee organization in the history of the Department of State, and its efforts to advance diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion, and to build and sustain a workforce that is representative of America. Mr. Secretary, we think it is only fitting that as TLG celebrates its 50th anniversary and its service to the international affairs community, we are also here today to pause to recognize a trailblazer in our past TLG president, Ambassador Ruth Davis. Hers is a long list of firsts. She was the first female senior watch officer in the Operations Center, the first African-American director of the Foreign Service Institute, the first African-American female Director General of the Foreign Service, and the first African-American woman to be named Career Ambassador. But of course there's more. Thanks to her efforts, she brought Secretary Colin Powell's vision of inculcating our institution with leadership by creating the School of Leadership and Management at FSI. And the Pickering, Rangel, and Payne Fellowship programs thrive because of her continued engagement and, yes, vigilance. Who in this room does not stand on the shoulders of this giant? I know so many of her mentees here today join me, another of her mentees, in saying thank you for your dedication to the international affairs community, to the Department of State, and to the Thursday Luncheon Group. I would be remiss if I did not say that Ambassador Davis's guidance often came in the form of tough love, which has been alluded to today, and she spoke often, both personally and in public, about social injustice, weaving these issues into the very fabric of our foreign policy as well as our personnel policy. You remind us through your continued commitment to this institution of our responsibility to do the same. So, Ambassador Davis, please accept these 50 roses as an expression of our gratitude, our admiration, and our appreciation.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much.
Please be seated. Good afternoon. I am Yolanda Kearney, the president of the Thursday Luncheon Group. I thank you. Thank you. Obviously, I realize I have the unenviable position of following not only the Secretary and Ruth Davis, but luckily my remarks are on my phone. They'll be brief. I'm also what stands between you and lunch, I'm reminded. Mr. Secretary, our newest TLG lifer, welcome, and thank you so much for your remarks. I want to thank the Quantico Marine Corps Brass Quintet for their beautiful arrangement of Lift Every Voice and Sing. The second verse of that poem is particularly poignant for me today, a part that says, "Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet, with the steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed." The Quantico Marine Corps Brass Quintet It's important that you participate today, and again, I thank you. All Marine Corps Embassy Security Group members train at Quantico, and obviously there's a long, warm, and close relationship between the Diplomatic Corps and the Marine Corps. Again, thank you and Semper Fi. To the board members of the Thursday Luncheon Group, I thank you for embracing my vision for the Thursday Luncheon Group and for supporting me as we implement the Renaissance Platform goals. I am so humbled to serve as your president. I trained academically as a historian at the Howard University. Oh, you knew it was coming, come on. And the history of this organization continues to fill me with a great deal of awe. In your program, you will see a roster of the founding group of TLG members from 1973, and I understand that we have two of them with us today. Ambassador Harriet L.M. Thomas, will you please stand? And Mr. Wilbur White. Are you with us, Mr. Wilbur White? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You honor us with your presence. We will celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Thursday Luncheon Group throughout our Jubilee year. And so we hope to see you at our symposia and our discussions where we invite you to join us in discussing foreign policy as we are wont to do. From its founding, the Thursday Luncheon Group has examined U.S. foreign policy, and necessarily that involves an examination of domestic policy as well. When I first joined the Foreign Service, I was told, and I still believe it to be true, this is the greatest way to serve this country. I was also told, even if it costs you, speak truth to authority. If it costs you the DCMship, if it costs you the ambassadorship, speak truth to authority. It is the right thing to do. At many inflection points in our history, TLG has hoisted a mirror and asked the foreign affairs community and the agencies to look at themselves. And we have not always liked what we saw, but in it we found things of great beauty. We saw the dignity and the moral force and the clarity of wisdom of Ruth Davis and Aurelia Brazil and Teddy Taylor and Linda Thomas Greenfield and Larry Palmer. We saw Pamela Bridgewater serve with distinction in apartheid South Africa. And we saw Steve McGann lead in Asia and with maritime policy in ways that we had not seen before. We saw a network of people who support each other and cheer each other on in 1,000 small and huge ways. And Jessica, Desiree, Tiffany, Shelby, I'm so proud of you. Darius, I'm so stinking proud of you. In this institution that once separated its employees by race when it came to dining, very shortly, if I will be quiet and sit down, we will share a meal together in this space. So I thank you all for joining us. To our TLG members, most of whom are serving around the world, some imperiled, you are always in our thoughts. And we look forward to your celebrations at posts around the world throughout this 50th anniversary year. So, thank you again for joining us. Thank you to our elders and to our seniors. And please enjoy your lunch on this first Thursday of the month of February.